Captain Jake Morrison looked at the strange message on his screen. The words came from somewhere far away in space, from aliens who called themselves the Galactic Council. He had never heard of them before today. The Terra Nova was a big ship that explored new places in space. Jake and his crew had been visiting planets and meeting friendly aliens for 3 years now. They traded things and learned about each other. Everything was going well until this message arrived. Species called human, the message said. You must go back to your home planet Earth right now. Do not leave your solar system again. There is a war happening in our galaxy. This war is not your problem. You must stay away or you will die. Commander Lisa Brooks stood next to Jake. She was his best officer and helped him make important choices. Lisa read the message again and shook her head. They want us to run home and hide like scared children, Lisa said. We have never hurt anyone out here. We only wanted to explore and make friends. Jake felt angry. Humans had worked so hard to build spaceships and travel to the stars. Now some aliens he had never met were telling them to stop everything and go home. The message kept playing. It showed a map of the galaxy with red areas marked as dangerous. Most of the galaxy was red now. Only a small blue dot showed where Earth was far away from everything else. The Vorak Empire is taking over many planets, the alien voice continued. They are very strong and dangerous. The Galactic Council is fighting them, but this is our job, not yours. Primitive species like humans must stay safe at home. Jake turned off the message. He looked at his crew working on the bridge. These were good people who had left their families on Earth to explore space. They deserved better than being called primitive and sent home. Dr. Amy Carter walked up to Jake. She was the ship's doctor and one of the smartest people he knew. Amy had helped many alien species during their travels. She looked worried. Captain, I've been reading about this Galactic Council, Amy said. They control most of the galaxy. They have rules about which species can travel in space and which ones cannot. What kind of rules? Jake asked. Only species they think are smart enough and strong enough can join them. All others must stay on their home planets forever. Lisa crossed her arms. So they decide who is worthy and who is not. How nice of them. Jake sent the message to Earth right away. It would take weeks for Earth to get it because space was so big. But he knew the leaders on Earth needed to see this. President Robert Hayes sat in a big meeting room with his advisors. They had just received Jake's message about the Galactic Council. Everyone looked serious and worried. Admiral Peter Stone was the head of Earth's Space Navy. He had gray hair and had been a soldier his whole life. Peter put a map on the table showing what they knew about space. The situation is bad, Peter said. Our scout ships have seen many planets on fire. The Vorak Empire is moving fast and destroying everything in their way. They take prisoners and make them work as slaves. Senator Claire Davis was there too. She helped make laws for Earth and cared about keeping people safe. How strong is this Galactic Council? Claire asked. They have thousands of ships and many different alien species working together, Peter replied. But they are losing the war. The Vorak are winning almost every fight. President Hayes stood up and walked to the window. He could see the lights of the city below. Millions of people lived normal lives down there. They went to work, played with their children, and dreamed of the future. None of them knew that aliens wanted to trap humanity on Earth forever. What do we know about human space forces? The president asked. We have 50 military ships and about 200 exploration ships like the Terra Nova, Peter said. Not much compared to the thousands of alien ships out there. But our ships are different, said Dr. Helen Scott. She studied how different species thought and acted. I have been reading about alien battles. They all fight the same way, following old rules and traditions. They are predictable. And humans? President Hayes asked. We are not predictable at all. We change our plans quickly. We use whatever works even if it seems crazy to others. The meeting went on for hours. Some people wanted to obey the Galactic Council and bring all humans home. Others wanted to ignore the message and keep exploring. President Hayes made his choice. We will not abandon our people in space. We will not hide on Earth while evil spreads across the galaxy. If the Galactic Council cannot stop the Vorak, maybe it is time for humanity to try. Back on the Terra Nova, Jake got a message from Earth. It was short and simple. Continue your mission. Help who you can. Earth stands behind you. Jake smiled for the first time in days. He called his crew together and told them about Earth's decision. Some looked scared, but most looked determined. We are not going home, Jake announced. We are staying out here to do what is right. The Galactic Council thinks we are too primitive to help. Let us show them how wrong they are. Lisa grinned. Where do we start, Captain? We start by learning everything we can about this war. Knowledge is power, and we will need all the power we can get. The Terra Nova changed course toward the war zones. Behind them, other human ships got the same orders. Earth's small fleet was heading into the biggest war the galaxy had ever seen. The Galactic Council had told humanity to stay away. They said humans were too weak and primitive to make a difference. They wanted Earth's children to hide while evil conquered the stars, but they did not understand humans very well. Throughout history, when faced with impossible odds, humans had always done the same thing. They rolled up their sleeves, worked together, and found a way to win. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you cornered humanity. The results would surprise everyone. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council told humanity to stay away from the war. Captain Jake Morrison and his crew on the Terra Nova were flying through empty space, looking for any signs of the conflict they had been warned about. The ship's sensors picked up something strange ahead. It was a damaged spacecraft moving very slowly and sending out a distress call. Jake could see that the ship was badly hurt, with black burn marks across its metal surface and pieces floating away from it. Captain, that ship is going to explode soon, said Lieutenant Tom Baker, who watched the ship's instruments. Their engine is failing and they have no power left. Jake did not think twice about what to do. Get us close to that ship right now. Prepare the rescue shuttles and tell Dr. Amy to get the medical bay ready. Commander Lisa Brooks looked worried. Jake, if we help them, we will be breaking the Council's orders. They told us to stay out of this war completely. I do not care what the Council said, Jake replied. There are people dying on that ship and we are going to save them. The damaged ship belonged to a species called the Keth. Jake had met them before during peaceful trading missions. They were gentle people who looked like tall, thin humans but with blue skin and 3 fingers on each hand. The Keth loved art and music and had never hurt anyone. When the Terra Nova got close, Jake could see that the alien ship was in terrible condition. Big holes were burned through its sides and the lights inside were going dark. Whatever had attacked this ship was powerful and cruel. The rescue team brought 15 Keth survivors onto the Terra Nova. Many were badly hurt, and Dr. Amy Carter worked hard to save their lives. The aliens were scared and kept looking around as if something might attack them again. The leader of the Keth survivors was named Whisper of Wind, which was as close as humans could get to saying his real name. He was old and wise, with silver markings on his blue skin that showed he was important among his people. Whisper of Wind grabbed Jake's arm with his 3-fingered hand. His big eyes were full of fear and sadness. Your people, Whisper of Wind said through a translation machine. The Council said you would not help us. They said humans were too primitive to understand what is happening in our galaxy. Jake felt angry when he heard this. The Council does not speak for all humans. We decide for ourselves who we help. Tell me about this war. Whisper of Wind looked around to make sure it was safe to talk. Then he began to tell Jake the terrible truth about what was happening in the galaxy. The Vorak Empire is not just conquering planets, Whisper of Wind explained. They are stealing people from every species they defeat. They take them to secret places and do horrible things to them. What kind of things? Dr. Amy asked as she helped treat a wounded Keth child. They study our bodies and our minds. They take pieces of us and put them together to make perfect warriors. The Vorak want to create a new type of soldier that has the best abilities from every species in the galaxy. Jake felt sick when he heard this. How many species have they captured? 12 so far, Whisper of Wind replied. My people were number 13, but some of us escaped. The Council says they have a plan to stop the Vorak, but they keep losing every battle. Lisa shook her head in disgust. And they want us to stay home while this happens. Meanwhile, back on Earth, important military leaders were meeting to discuss humanity's response to the Galactic War. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Jackson stood in front of a room full of generals and admirals. He had spent weeks studying everything humans knew about alien warfare. I have been looking at how different species fight wars, Ben told the group. Every alien species we have met follows the same basic patterns when they fight. Admiral Peter Stone leaned forward in his chair. Explain what you mean. Ben turned on a big screen that showed videos of alien battles. Look at this fight between the Zephyrians and the Christek Empire from 5 years ago. Both sides line up their ships in neat rows and shoot at each other until one side runs away. The room watched as alien fleets moved in slow, predictable formations across space. Their battles looked like ancient sailing ships fighting on an ocean. Every species has rules about how to fight with honor, Ben continued. They announce their attacks before they make them. They give the enemy time to prepare. They never attack from behind or use tricks. That sounds stupid, said General Rita Fox, who commanded Earth's Space Marines. It is stupid, Ben agreed, but it is how aliens think war should work. They believe fighting with honor is more important than winning quickly. Ben showed more videos of alien battles. In every one, both sides followed the same basic rules. They fought fair, gave warnings, and never did anything unexpected. Now look at this, Ben said, showing a video of human military training. Our soldiers are taught to use any advantage they can find. We hide, we use tricks, we attack when the enemy is not ready. President Hayes had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up. You are saying that humans fight differently than aliens. Yes, sir. Aliens fight like knights in old stories, following rules of honor. Humans fight like survivors, using whatever works to stay alive. And you think this gives us an advantage? I think it gives us the only advantage that matters, Ben replied. While alien commanders worry about fighting honorably, human commanders worry about going home to their families. The meeting continued for hours as Earth's leaders debated what to do. Some wanted to follow the Council's orders and bring all humans home. Others wanted to send the entire Earth fleet to fight the Vorak immediately. President Hayes made the final decision. We will not abandon the innocent species being destroyed by the Vorak, but we will not rush into this war without a plan either. What do you want us to do? Admiral Stone asked. I want our ships to start helping refugees and learning about the enemy. When we do fight, we will fight to win, not to look honorable. Back on the Terra Nova, Jake made his own decision about what humanity should do. He sent a message to all the human ships in space, telling them about the Keth refugees and what Whisper of Wind had revealed about the Vorak's evil plans. We came out here to explore and make friends, Jake said in his message. Now we find that our new friends are being destroyed by monsters. The Galactic Council wants us to turn our backs and pretend this is not our problem. Jake looked at the Keth survivors being cared for by his crew. Human doctors were working alongside alien patients, sharing medicine and knowledge to save lives. But it is our problem, Jake continued, because when evil spreads unchecked, it eventually reaches everyone. The Council thinks we are too primitive to help, but they are wrong. Humanity has never been primitive when it comes to protecting the innocent. The message spread quickly through the human fleet. Ship after ship responded with the same answer. They would stay and fight. The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans would obey their orders and run home scared. Instead, they had given humanity a reason to show the galaxy what humans could really do when they decided to fight for what was right. Captain Sarah Wells stood on the bridge of her ship, the New York, watching the blue and green planet below them. It was a beautiful world where the Keth people had built their newest colony. The planet had clean air, fresh water, and peaceful cities filled with art and music. Sarah was delivering medical supplies to help the Keth refugees who had escaped from Vorak attacks. Her ship was smaller than the Terra Nova, but it was fast and carried good weapons. The New York was what Earth called a destroyer, built to protect other ships and fight if needed. Captain, we have company, called out Lieutenant Mike Johnson from his position at the sensor station. 3 ships coming fast from behind the 4th moon. They are big and they look angry. Sarah looked at her screen and saw the approaching ships. They were dark gray with sharp edges and red lights. She had never seen ships like these before, but she knew what they must be. These were Vorak warships. How long until they reached the planet? Sarah asked. 20 minutes at their current speed, Mike replied. The colony has no defenses. The Keth do not believe in weapons, Sarah thought quickly. Her one ship could not fight 3 larger enemy vessels in open space. The Vorak ships were bigger, stronger, and probably had more experience in battle. But Sarah had something the aliens did not expect. She had a human brain that could think of crazy ideas. Take us into the asteroid field near the 5th planet, Sarah ordered. Full speed. Her second-in-command, Commander Alex Turner, looked confused. Captain, that field is dangerous. The rocks are moving fast and some are as big as buildings. Exactly, Sarah smiled. The Vorak will follow us because they want an easy fight, but they have never seen how humans use the environment as a weapon. The New York raced toward the asteroid field with the 3 Vorak ships following close behind. Sarah could hear the alien commanders talking on the radio, laughing about the stupid humans who were running away to hide among rocks. Attention, human vessel. came a harsh voice speaking broken English. "You cannot escape us in that rock field. Come out and surrender now. We will make your death quick." Sarah picked up the radio and spoke back to them. "Thanks for the offer, but we have other plans." The New York dove deep into the asteroid field. The rocks here were huge, some bigger than the ship itself, and they all moved in different directions as they orbited the nearby planet. It was like flying through a deadly dance where one wrong move meant getting crushed, but Sarah had trained for this. Earth pilots learned to fly in dangerous places because Earth itself was a dangerous world with storms, mountains, and oceans that could kill you if you made mistakes. "Target the biggest asteroid near the Vorak lead ship," Sarah told her weapons officer, Lieutenant Jenny Cole. "Not the ship, just the rock." "Captain." "That will not hurt their ship," Jenny said. Confused. "Trust me," Sarah replied. Jenny fired the ship's main gun at a massive asteroid that was drifting near the first Vorak vessel. The blast broke the rock apart, but instead of flying away harmlessly, the pieces crashed into other asteroids. Those rocks hit more rocks, and soon there was a chain reaction of collisions. The lead Vorak ship tried to dodge the flying debris, but their ship was too big and slow to move quickly in the tight space. Huge chunks of rock slammed into their hull, tearing holes in their armor and damaging their engines. "What trickery is this?" the Vorak commander screamed over the radio. Sarah moved her ship behind another large asteroid and waited. The second Vorak vessel came looking for them, moving carefully through the floating rocks. When it got close, Sarah used the ship's engines to push the asteroid directly into the enemy's path. The Vorak ship tried to blast the rock apart, but their weapons made the situation worse. The explosion sent thousands of smaller rocks flying in all directions like a shotgun blast made of stone. The alien vessel's shields failed under the impact of so many hits at once. The third Vorak ship decided to retreat, but Sarah was not going to let them escape to hurt more innocent people. She used the New York's small size to weave between asteroids, getting behind the enemy vessel where they could not see her coming. "Fire everything we have," Sarah ordered. The New York's missiles and energy weapons struck the fleeing ship's engines. The Vorak vessel spun out of control and crashed into a massive asteroid, exploding in a bright flash that lit up the entire field. When the battle was over, Sarah looked at her crew. They were all staring at her with amazement and respect. "Captain, how did you know that would work?" Alex asked. "I grew up in the Rocky Mountains on Earth," Sarah explained. "I learned that sometimes the environment is your best weapon. You just have to be smart enough to use it." The news of Sarah's victory spread quickly through both human and alien communication networks. On Earth, President Hayes called an emergency meeting to discuss what had happened. One human ship destroyed 3 Vorak vessels without taking any damage, Admiral Stone reported to the gathered leaders. Captain Wells used the asteroid field as both a shield and a weapon. "Have the aliens ever fought this way before?" President Hayes asked. Dr. Helen Scott, the expert on alien thinking, shook her head. "Never. All known species fight in open space where they can show off their ship designs and weapon power. Using the environment as a weapon is completely unknown to them." Meanwhile, far away at the Galactic Council's headquarters on Nexus Prime Station, the council members were having their own emergency meeting. The massive chamber held representatives from dozens of different species, all talking at once about the human victory. High Counselor Zeth Prime was a tall being made of living crystal who spoke with a voice like breaking glass. He was very old and had led the council for many years, but he had never seen anything like what the humans had done. "This is completely unacceptable," Zeth Prime announced to the chamber. "The humans were ordered to stay out of this conflict. Now they have interfered with our carefully planned strategies." Ambassador Kate Phillips had just arrived at Nexus Prime to represent humanity. She was a smart woman who had spent years learning about alien cultures, but she had never been in a room full of angry alien leaders before. "The humans destroyed Vorak ships that were attacking innocent colonists," Kate said calmly. "We call that protecting the defenseless." "You call it protecting," replied Counselor Vex 9, a snake-like being with 4 arms. "We call it disrupting the balance of power that we have spent centuries building." Kate looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at her. Some looked angry, some looked curious, and some looked scared. "What balance?" Kate asked. "You are losing this war badly. The Vorak have conquered 12 species while you followed your ancient rules about honorable combat." The chamber fell silent. No species had ever spoken to the council with such directness before. Alien cultures were built on politeness and following proper procedures. even when people were dying. "You do not understand the complexities of galactic warfare," Zeth Prime said, his crystal form flashing with anger. "Primitive species like humans cannot comprehend strategies that have been developed over millions of years." Kate stood up straighter and looked directly at the High Counselor. "We understand that you are losing. We understand that innocent people are dying while you worry about following proper procedures. And we understand that our primitive tactics just destroyed 3 enemy ships without losing a single human life." The Council members began talking among themselves in dozens of different alien languages. Kate could not understand most of what they were saying, but she could tell they were shocked by her words. "The humans must be stopped," Zeth Prime declared. "Their interference will ruin everything we have worked for." "Then you had better hurry," Kate replied with a smile, "because more human ships are already on their way to help the species you have failed to protect." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had a very different idea about how wars should be fought. 6 months had passed since humanity first joined the Galactic War, and everything was changing. General Matt Cooper stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Washington, looking at the battle plans for their biggest fight yet. The peaceful Null species needed help evacuating their home planet before the Vorak arrived with a massive fleet. Matt was a tough soldier who had fought in many wars on Earth before humans ever left their planet. He had gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles, but his mind was sharp and he understood how to win fights that seemed impossible. "Sir, the Vorak fleet is 3 times bigger than ours," reported Colonel Linda Hayes, his second-in-command. "They have 90 ships and we only have 30. Matt smiled at the worried looks on his officers' faces. "Good thing we are not planning to fight them the way they expect us to." The Null were gentle people who looked like large furry bears but walked on 2 legs like humans. They built beautiful cities under the ocean and created amazing music that could be heard for miles underwater. The Null had never hurt anyone and did not even have weapons to defend themselves. When the Vorak decided to attack the Null homeworld, the Galactic Council sent a message saying they were working on a rescue plan. But their plan would take 6 months to organize and the Vorak fleet would arrive in 2 weeks. The Council told the Null to hide and wait for proper help to arrive. Matt Cooper had a different idea. "We are not waiting 6 months while innocent people get captured and turned into experiments," he told his fleet commanders during a video meeting. "We are going to get the Null out of there right now." The other human captains listened carefully as Matt explained his plan. It was crazy and dangerous, but it was also the kind of plan that only humans would even think of trying. "We are going to split up into small groups," Matt said. "Each group will have only 3 or 4 ships, but they will all operate completely independently. No central command, no coordinated attacks, no predictable movements." Captain Nick Torres commanded Squadron 7, which included 4 fast attack ships. He was young and had grown up playing video games before becoming a pilot, so he understood how to think quickly and adapt to changing situations. "General, how do we coordinate if we are all fighting separately?" Nick asked. "We do not coordinate," Matt replied. "That is the whole point. The Vorak are expecting us to attack as one big fleet, so they have prepared defenses for that kind of battle. Instead, we are going to hit them from everywhere at once with tactics they have never seen before." The human fleet arrived at the Null homeworld just hours before the Vorak. Matt's ships immediately spread out across the entire star system, hiding behind planets, moons, and asteroid fields. Each small group of ships had its own mission, and none of them knew what the others were planning to do. When the Vorak fleet arrived, their commander was confident of an easy victory. Admiral Krelthvor was a veteran warrior who had conquered 15 worlds for the Vorak Empire. He had never lost a battle and expected the humans to line up their ships for a traditional space fight. Instead, the Vorak found nothing but empty space where the human fleet should have been waiting. "Where are the human ships?" Krelthvor demanded of his sensor operators. "We cannot find them, Admiral," came the nervous reply. "Our scans show they are here somewhere, but they are not where ships are supposed to be during a battle." That was when the attacks began, but not from the direction anyone expected. Nick Torres led his squadron in a strike on the Vorak supply ships, which were parked safely behind the main fleet. The humans came up from below the orbital plane, where no one thought to look for enemy ships. "Remember, we are not here to fight fair," Nick told his pilots. "We are here to win and go home alive." The squadron destroyed 6 Vorak supply vessels before the enemy even knew they were under attack. Then Nick's ships disappeared back into the shadows, leaving the Vorak confused and angry. At the same time, Commander Rachel Stone was leading her group in attacks on the Vorak communication ships. Without these vessels, the enemy fleet could not coordinate their movements or call for reinforcements. Rachel had been a computer programmer before becoming a space pilot, so she understood how to disrupt enemy systems. Her ships did not just attack with weapons. They also used electronic warfare to scramble Vorak computers and jam their radio signals. "Captain Stone, we have successfully hacked into their navigation system," reported her technical officer, Lieutenant Paul Martin. "Their ships think they are in a completely different location." "Good," Rachel smiled. "Now they will be shooting at empty space while we hit them from their blind spots." The battle continued for hours, but it was like no battle the galaxy had ever seen before. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, struck hard at weak points and vanished before the Vorak could respond. They turned asteroids into guided missiles, used gravity from planets to slingshot themselves at incredible speeds, and even rammed damaged human ships into enemy vessels when their weapons ran out. Dr. Helen Scott was watching the battle from a safe distance, studying how the different species fought. As Earth's expert on alien psychology, she was amazed by what she was seeing. "The Vorak commanders are completely paralyzed," she reported to Admiral Stone back on Earth. "They have never faced an enemy that does not follow predictable patterns. Their entire military doctrine is based on fighting opponents who announce their intentions and follow established rules of engagement." "And the humans?" Admiral Stone asked. "The humans are doing everything the Vorak think is impossible. They are attacking from multiple directions simultaneously, using the environment as a weapon, and completely ignoring every rule of honorable space combat that has existed for thousands of years." The turning point came when Matt Cooper himself led a direct assault on the Vorak flagship. Instead of approaching from the front like a proper space battle, the Washington came up from underneath, where the enemy ship's weapons could not target them effectively. "This is for every innocent species you have destroyed," Matt said as his ship's weapons tore through the Vorak flagship's hull. Admiral Krelth Vor could not believe what was happening. In 15 campaigns, he had never faced an enemy who fought with such creativity and ruthlessness. The humans used tactics that were completely outside anything taught in Vorak military academies. "They fight without honor," Krelth Vor complained to his remaining officers. "They use tricks and deception instead of meeting us in proper battle." "Perhaps, Admiral," replied his weapons officer quietly, "but they are winning." The Vorak retreat began when their flagship exploded. Without their commander and with their communication systems jammed, the remaining enemy ships fled in panic. They had started the day expecting an easy victory against primitive humans, but instead they had suffered their worst defeat in centuries. While the space battle raged overhead, human transport ships were busy evacuating every null from their ocean cities. The furry aliens were amazed that strangers would risk their lives to save people they barely knew. "Why do you help us?" asked Elder Gentle Current, the leader of the Null people. "We have nothing to offer you in return." Captain Julie Adams, who commanded one of the transport ships, smiled at the alien leader. "We help you because it is the right thing to do. That is reason enough for humans." When the evacuation was complete and the Vorak fleet was gone, Matt Cooper sent a message to the Galactic Council. The message was short and simple. The Null people are safe. The Vorak fleet has been defeated. Human casualties were minimal. Perhaps it is time to reconsider who is primitive in this galaxy. The news of the human victory spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. Species that had been neutral in the war began sending messages asking for human military advisors. The Keth, now armed with human-designed weapons and tactics, reclaimed 3 of their lost colonies in a single week. For the first time since the war began, the Vorak Empire was retreating instead of advancing. The tide had turned, and everyone knew that humanity was the reason why. The Galactic Council was no longer dismissing humans as primitive. They were beginning to realize that sometimes the most advanced strategy was to throw out all the old strategies and fight to win at any cost. The final battle of the Galactic War began not with massive fleets fighting each other, but with a simple message from Admiral Peter Stone to every human ship commander across the galaxy. The message contained coordinates, times, and targets, but most importantly, it contained hope. "Today we end this war," Admiral Stone said in his broadcast to the human fleet. "The Vorak Empire thinks they are safe behind their defenses, but they have never faced an enemy who can attack everywhere at once. The plan was the most ambitious military operation in galactic history. Instead of attacking the Vorak homeworld directly like the Galactic Council had always planned to do, the humans would strike 17 different Vorak military bases simultaneously across 3 sectors of space. Captain Dan Lewis commanded the assault team targeting the orbital defense platforms around Vorak Prime, the enemy's capital world. His ship, the Boston, was part of a small fleet that had been secretly approaching the Vorak homeworld for weeks, using routes through unexplored space that no alien species had ever mapped. "Captain, their defenses are incredible," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster, studying the massive weapon platforms that surrounded the enemy planet. "Those orbital stations have enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet 10 times over." Dan looked at the data his crew had gathered about the Vorak defenses. The aliens had spent centuries building the perfect defensive system around their homeworld. Thousands of automated weapon platforms formed protective rings around the planet, with overlapping fields of fire that made direct attack impossible. But Dan was not planning a direct attack. Human engineers had spent months developing a special device that could turn the Vorak's own defensive systems against them. The device was small, about the size of a football, but it could cause massive damage if placed correctly. "We are not going to attack their weapons," Dan explained to his crew. "We are going to make their weapons attack each other." The human plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Each Vorak defense platform was connected to a central computer system that controlled targeting and coordination. If that system could be tricked into believing that the other platforms were enemy ships, the entire defensive network would destroy itself. While Dan's team prepared to infiltrate Vorak Prime's defenses, similar operations were taking place across the galaxy. Captain Janet Miller was leading an attack on the Vorak Military Academy, where new officers were trained. Commander Bob Taylor was targeting their main shipyard where new warships were built. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was hitting their communication center that coordinated the entire empire. Each human force was small, usually just 3 or 4 ships, but they all worked together as part of a larger plan that no single Vorak commander could understand or counter. The aliens were used to fighting one big battle at a time, but humans were about to show them what happened when war became personal and everywhere at once. The attacks began exactly at the planned time. Dan Lewis and his team slipped past the outer defenses of Vorak Prime, using a captured enemy ship and fake identification codes. They reached the central control station for the defense platforms and planted their special devices. "Uploading the virus now," reported Chief Engineer Kelly Brown as she connected her computer to the Vorak systems. "Their security is tough, but it was designed to keep out other aliens, not humans who think completely differently." Within minutes, the Vorak defense platforms began receiving false targeting information. Their computers told them that the other platforms in their network were actually enemy ships trying to attack the planet. The automated systems did exactly what they were programmed to do and began firing at each other. The sky around Vorak Prime lit up with explosions as thousands of defense platforms destroyed each other in a massive chain reaction. In less than an hour, the impregnable fortress that had protected the Vorak homeworld for centuries was gone, destroyed by its own weapons. At the same time, similar chaos was erupting across the Vorak Empire. Human teams were using everything from computer viruses to old-fashioned explosives to cripple enemy installations. The Vorak military command structure, which depended on rigid hierarchy and centralized control, could not cope with simultaneous attacks coming from so many directions. Emperor Thak Zurl, the supreme ruler of the Vorak Empire, watched in horror from his palace as reports flooded in about the destruction of his military forces. He was an ancient being who had ruled for over 300 years and had never experienced defeat. "How is this possible?" the emperor demanded of his remaining generals. "We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. Our technology is superior to these primitive humans." General Vash Kul, one of the few Vorak commanders to survive the human attacks, tried to explain what had happened. "Your Majesty, the humans do not fight like any species we have ever encountered. They ignore all proper military procedures and attack in ways that our strategies cannot predict or counter." "Then adapt our strategies," the Emperor ordered. "We cannot adapt fast enough," Vashkul replied sadly. "By the time we understand one human tactic and develop a counter for it, they have already changed to something completely different." They are too flexible for our rigid command system to handle. The Vorak Empire's collapse was swift and complete. Without their military bases, communication networks, and training facilities, the scattered Vorak fleets found themselves isolated and outnumbered. Species that had been enslaved for years rose up in rebellion, using weapons and tactics taught to them by human advisors. The war officially ended when Emperor Thakzerl surrendered unconditionally to a joint human and alien fleet. The ceremony took place on Nexus Prime Station, where the Galactic Council met. But this time the humans were not visitors asking for permission to exist. President Robert Hayes, now representing Earth as an equal member of the galactic community, accepted the Vorak surrender. Standing next to him were leaders from dozens of species that humanity had helped liberate during the war. High Counselor Zeth Prime, the crystalline being who had once dismissed humans as primitive, spoke to the assembled representatives with what could only be described as embarrassment. "We owe humanity a great debt," Zeth Prime admitted to the crowd. "We underestimated your species and nearly allowed the galaxy to fall to evil because of our pride and stubbornness." Ambassador Kate Phillips, who had argued with the council so many times during the war, smiled graciously at the alien leader. "We prefer to look forward rather than backward. The question now is how we can all work together to make sure something like the Vorak Empire never rises again." The formal ceremony, inducting humanity into the Galactic Council as a full member, species was attended by representatives from over 100 different worlds. Many of these species owed their freedom directly to human intervention during the war. Elder Gentle Current of the Nal people spoke for many when he addressed the assembled crowd. "The humans came to us when our own leaders had abandoned us to fate. They risked their lives for people they had never met, asking nothing in return except the chance to do what was right." Whisper of Wind, the Keth survivor who had first told humans about the true nature of the Vorak threat, presented President Hayes with a crystal sculpture that represented unity between species. "You were told to stay away," Whisper of Wind said, his three-fingered hands shaking with emotion. "Instead you came closer. You made our fight your fight, and because of that, freedom won." President Hayes accepted the crystal and looked out at the faces of aliens and humans working together in the Great Council chamber. Representatives who had once seen each other as enemies or strangers were now talking and laughing together, sharing ideas about building a better galaxy. When the Galactic Council told us to stay away from this war, they assumed we would obey out of fear, President Hayes said in his speech to the Assembly. "But humanity has never let fear stop us from doing what we believe is right." He paused and looked directly at High Counselor Zeth Prime. "We did not join this war for glory or territory or political power. We joined because we could not stand by and watch while innocent people suffered and died." The president's voice grew stronger as he continued. "Some of you called us primitive because we do not follow your ancient traditions and formal rules. But there is nothing primitive about refusing to let evil triumph while good people stand by and do nothing." The ceremony ended with the signing of the new Galactic Charter, a document that established principles for cooperation between species based on human ideas about freedom, equality, and mutual aid. For the first time in galactic history, the ruling document emphasized protecting the weak rather than maintaining the power of the strong. As the Terra Nova prepared to leave Nexus Prime Station and return to Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. The same stars that had once been forbidden to humanity were now open to exploration and friendship. Commander Lisa Brooks joined him at the window. "Hard to believe it all started with them telling us to stay away," she said. Jake smiled and thought about everything that had happened since that first threatening message from the Galactic Council. Maybe the best thing they could have done was try to keep us out. Nothing motivates humans quite like being told something is impossible,